Hello, I'm Joe Davidson, founder of Oklahoma Joe's. And you know, since the beginning of mankind, the secrets of barbecue have been eluding man. And really, when it boils down to it, there are three basic ingredients to having a successful barbecue cookout. Number one is the wood that you're cooking with. It needs to be a well-seasoned hardwood. Number two are your spices. You gotta have great spices. You go on your third critical component, and that's a great cut of meat. Getting more in depth as far as the woods or the fuel source goes, my favorite is pecan wood. Need to use a well-seasoned pecan wood. That's a wood that's been cut down for approximately a year. If it's went through a season of the summer, it's probably okay too. Pecan wood has a very mild, aromatic flavor, doesn't have a tendency to overpower what you're cooking with too strong of a smoke taste either. My second favorite is oak. Oak wood is a great hot fuel source. Like pecan, it puts out a relatively mild smoke flavor, and it's readily available at any wood yard, so it makes it a good choice a lot of times also. The thing about oak you've got to worry about, just like anything else, make sure it's well seasoned. I can't stress that enough. Of course, an all-time favorite in America is hickory wood. Most barbecue restaurants claim that they cook with hickory. Some do and some don't. The thing about hickory, it's got a great flavor if it's well seasoned. If it's green, it's going to have a tendency to turn your food black and give it too strong of a smoke flavor, making it almost bitter tasting there. Getting into some other fuel sources that a lot of people cook with, and that's charcoal, putting chips on top of it. The type that most of you are familiar with will be charcoal briquettes. Charcoal briquettes actually are about 45% hardwood charcoal, and then it's going to have about 40% coal, and the balance is coal dust and glues as an aggregate to hold it together. So the thing about lump or charcoal briquettes are that it's not 100% pure product. My favorite charcoal product is lump charcoal. Lump charcoal is 100% pure charcoal wood. The advantage of lump charcoal is that it's going to burn hotter, burn longer, and really going to give you better results than you can get with charcoal briquettes. When we're talking about all these different woods and charcoals, let's get into how to light those a little bit. You know, when it comes to lighting your cooker, there's a lot of different methods. There's fluids, there are charcoal chimneys, and there's LP log lighter systems. And here in just a minute, we're going to fire those up. The second most critical ingredient that you're going to have when barbecuing are the spices that you're cooking with. Oklahoma Joe's manufactures 4 different dry rubs that are great on barbecue. The first one is sweet and spicy. It's a barbecue dry rub that is excellent and going to add a sweet flavor to chicken and pork. Then you've got all-purpose barbecue seasoning. All-purpose barbecue seasoning won Best Barbecue Dry Rub on the Planet in 1994 at the International Barbecue Sauce and Spice Competition. It's great on anything. It's going to make just about any cut of meat taste better when you put it in a cooker. Then you've got Oklahoma Joe's Hog Rub and Yardbird seasoning. Hog Rub and Yardbird seasoning is a spice that's heavy in garlic, and it's great on pork shoulders. So that's my favorite spice when it comes to pork shoulders. And we'll be doing some of that here in just a minute. Steak seasoning, it is probably my favorite dry rub. It's heavy in black pepper, which I'm a big fan of. It's great on any beef product. We use it with our briskets, we use it on steaks and hamburgers, but it's also very good when it comes to doing pork ribs in conjunction with the all-purpose there. When it comes to meat selection, that's something your butcher's going to be your best friend. No question about that. Now let's get into the actual lighting of the grills themselves. The first method we're going to talk about that most of you are most familiar with will be the lighter fluid. Make sure and use a fluid that's approved for igniting charcoal fires. Don't ever use gasoline or kerosene because it's very dangerous and it's going to impart a flavor into the food that you're not going to be looking for. You still have to be careful when you're using fluids to just put a little bit on there. You don't want to put too much on it because you want to get just enough to ignite it and turn your charcoal gray. Don't douse it down completely, because what's going to happen, it's going to take you 30 minutes to burn off all that fluid, and there's a good likelihood you're going to impart a petroleum taste onto what you're cooking. Once you've ignited it, let it dry down just a little bit before you actually ignite the fire. And all you got to do is light one little area of it, and it's going to take off and get going. A method of lighting charcoal that I think I like a little better than fluids is an alternative to using it, and that's a charcoal chimney. It's very simple. Basically, the aspect of it is you're going to use a draft and a paper as a fuel source to ignite it. What you'll do is you'll take one piece of paper, stick it in the bottom of the charcoal chimney, load it up with charcoal, and then light the paper. Within 5 minutes, you're going to have a good glowing bed of charcoal inside your charcoal chimney. Good charcoal chimneys have a heat deflector on the back side of it, wood handle, so you're not going to burn yourself. And then you're going to put it inside the charcoal grill. This grill is actually utilizing an offset firebox system. When we talk about different ways to cook, we're really going to be talking about grilling and barbecuing. So this one is utilizing an offset firebox system. It's got a damper on the backside that controls your intake combustion air, and a slide cap on the top side that's going to control your exit air. You use those in conjunction to control the amount of heat and smoke that move through the unit. This particular unit is a horizontal wood roasting oven. The advantages of using a true barbecue method, that is where you're cooking with indirect heat and smoke, is that number one, you're not going to have to worry about grease flare-up. You're not going to have to tend to your meat all the time. You can actually walk away for 2 to 3 hours at one time without having to tend or flip your meat there. The nice thing about it also is that it's going to really put a true wood smoke flavor in what you're cooking. There's a lot of meats though where this is not really applicable, where you're wanting to cook a little faster, like chicken or steaks or hamburgers. That's when grilling, that's the only way to go. When you're grilling, that's when you're going to be cooking directly over the fire, right over the wood or the charcoal fuel base that you're using there. Thing about grilling that's a big advantage is that it's fast and easy. Number two is that it's going to be something that is, you can get a more affordable unit. Most charcoal grills, you're looking at not having to make the investment you would with an offset firebox system, and they're readily available at any of the stores in your town there. When I'm using this system like this, I like to get my fire going, let all the fluid burn out, which is going to take approximately 10 minutes to burn all the fluid away, and I know that's happening when I'm getting a good gray base around the bottom of it. One thing about charcoal, when you're lighting it, is that if you find that you're not getting a good gray base all the way around it, then you might want to add a little bit more fluid on it to keep it going. The easiest and safest method to lighting a fire really is by use of an LP log lighter system. When you're using an LP log lighter system, the bottle is always associated at the back side of the cooker. You'll turn it on, and then you never want to use just a lighter and stick in there for fear of that you might burn your hand there. So the best thing to do is to take and use a paper towel, ignite it, stick it down into the firebox, then bend over and turn your LP gas on. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my wood, crisscross it across it, the firebox. And that's all there is to it. Okay, we've got the cookers fired up, and now it's time to get down to business, and that's meat preparation. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about some safe food handling conditions. Number one we want to talk about are the temperatures in which you hold meat, both before it's cooked and after. Before meat is cooked, you need to hold it at 40 degrees or below. After it is cooked, it needs to be held at 140 degrees or above. If you'll adhere to those two temperatures, 40 and below, 140 and above, you're adhering to some very safe meat handling conditions. Next thing is to make sure your area is clean. Your cutting boards are clean, your utensils are clean, and also your hands are clean. If you're around an area where you don't have a good water supply, start using latex gloves. And that's what I always prefer to do. That way I can change them between different times, and each area in different meats, sometimes you want to use different gloves, especially when we move into the poultry category there. The first item we're going to be talking about today is pork shoulder. Really, there's 3 different cuts of pork shoulder. The first one would be the whole shoulder. That's where you get the whole shoulder off a hog. The next item would be the picnic, and then a Boston butt. Today we're going to be doing a Boston butt. A Boston butt has a bone in it, and it's a blade bone. The first thing I want to be able to do, though, is trim the excess fat on the outside of it. So I'm going to trim it. A shoulder is really comprised of a bunch of little muscles together. So you're not going to be able to get all the fat out of it. Really don't want to get all the fat out because that adds some flavor to it, but you don't want to have too much fat, because at that point in time, what's going to happen is you're going to be applying your spices to the fat. It's not going to get into the meat and really not going to help you in your flavor because no one's really eating the fat. Once we trim the bone out of the shoulder, which is a pretty simple task, it's flat on both sides, go around one side, then the back side of it again. You remove your pork blade shoulder there. Once we've got that done, it's really time to add the spices to the inside of it. Today we're going to be adding hog rub and yardbird seasoning to the shoulder. Hog rub and yardbird seasoning is really my favorite when it comes to shoulders. It's heavy in garlic, has black pepper, has a lot of brown sugar in it, and it's excellent on shoulder. Apply it liberally to the outside of the shoulder. And when I say that, you really can't put too much on it. It's one of those cuts of meats that a good red spice like this just can't put too much of it. It's a big cut of meat. It can handle a lot of salt and a lot of sugar. Once it's applied to the inside and the outside of it, there's a couple of choices. You can either put it on the cooker just like it is, or you can wrap it up with string. The advantage of wrapping it up with cotton string is that it's going to hold it together, make it juicier in the cooking processes of it, and when it comes out, it's going to look like a little prime rib. So I'm going to go ahead and slip them in there. A lot of restaurants you'll see will actually use a net that they'll apply to it. But cotton string, for the average person, it's easier to come up with. Just slide it underneath it. And really all it takes is about 3 of them to tie up a shoulder across there. Just put a couple of square knots is all you need to do. Once we got all 3 of them on there, what we'll do then is we'll come in along and cut off that excess string there. The neat thing about this is that it's actually going to wind up having those string lines across it in addition to the grill marks, and it winds up with a beautiful finished product. Now they've got the shoulder ready, let's go on to the brisket now. Okay, a brisket, a couple of things you need to touch on. Number one is that you want to look at the fat on it. If it's yellow, that means that it's most likely a range-fed cattle. If it's really white, it means it's corn-fed. So always look for that. I'm going to trim this out where I've got no more than 1/4 inch of fat any place on a brisket. A packer trim is going to have a lot of fat on it. There's really 2 parts to a brisket. Number one is the heel. You can tell the heel is going to be very grainy and going to have very coarse meat going one direction. The flat of a brisket, on the other hand, has much more, it's a denser pattern on the meat. There's some marbling inside of it, and basically it's the prime cut. Always ask your butcher to get you a choice cut of meat, and most likely anytime you get a choice cut, it is going to be a good corn-fed cow. Once we've got it trimmed up, basically all we need to do now is apply the seasonings to it. On the brisket, what we're going to be using is Steak Maker, or the Oklahoma Joe steak seasoning, and the original barbecue seasoning. Going to be applying it to it on about a 50-50 basis. Well, a little tight there. And again, just like the pork shoulder, you don't have to worry about getting too much on it. It is really a good spice, good dry rub. If you don't have these available, follow it up with sugar, salt, some black pepper, and some garlic seasoning, and it's going to come out very good also. When we're applying this to it, just make sure and try and get it covered as evenly as possible, and then follow up with the original barbecue seasoning. Once I've finished putting this seasoning on there, we know that these cuts of meat, both the pork shoulder and the brisket, are going to be cooking approximately 8 to 10 hours. We'll be watching the internal meat temperature as we're going along, but it's something that once you get it seasoned, really it's going to be several hours before you have to come back and do anything to it again. What I'm going to be watching for when we are doing a brisket is watching for that internal meat temperature. Now it's time to put it on the grill. We've got an offset firebox. It's going to be hottest in this area right here, so I'm going to put it pretty much the middle of the cooker. You'll notice this cooker is built with a slope downhill away from the firebox, and that way all the meat dripping is going to run downhill away from the firebox, and I don't have to worry about grease flare-up. Now that we've got those on, it's time to go on to the ribs. Ribs are a couple of things we're going to be going over. Number one is how to trim it out. This is the spare rib right here, and then there's another favorite, it's a loin back. With a spare rib, I'm going to make this a St. Louis style. So basically what I'm going to be doing is trimming off the knuckle side of it. Discard it. Then you want to trim off the brisket. Move it on out of there. Once we've got that trimmed off of it, what you'll want to do is trim the membrane. The membrane basically is the inside of the body cavity, and if you don't trim it, what's going to happen is all your spices are going to hit that membrane and not permeate into the meat itself. So make sure and get that off. Another thing that can happen if you don't trim the membrane is that actually it will become tough and could keep your ribs from cleaning off the bone easily when it's time to eat them. Don't get frustrated when you're trimming these, because they're kind of tough. Get them off there. Once you have trimmed your ribs off, then it's time to put the seasoning on it. We're going to do a sweet rub chicken. We're using Oklahoma Joe's sweet and spicy seasoning. The thing to do would be, if you don't have it available, would be to go use a white sugar and some salt and some pepper. A little paprika wouldn't hurt either. I'm going to apply it liberally to both sides of the cooker. Once I've got it in here, we're going to get it in there, heavy on both sides. Put it on the cooker. Once it's in the cooker, all you got to do is sit back and relax and let the cookers do their work for you. And that's it. I want to share with you a couple of barbecue tools that are essential in any barbecuer's pantry. First of all is a rib rack. A rib rack is designed to be able to hold 5 slabs vertically instead of laying them out flat. What that's going to do is going to make it where you can truly cook 5 slabs in the same area you normally cook 1 slab. You put the knuckle side up, that way they're self-basting and you don't have to worry about turning them or flipping them. The next thing is a meat hook. The meat hook makes it possible to grab a hold of your slab of ribs or your brisket or whatever, flip it with one flick of the wrist, and I'll tell you, it's the neatest thing since the spatula. Now let's go on to the whole chickens. When we're doing our whole chickens, basically, they're very simple. What I'm going to want to do, I've already washed these. The first thing is I'm going to apply sweet rub on the outside of them. Sweet and spicy seasoning is a great rub on chicken. It's won 4 national titles in barbecue competitions. When you're doing whole chickens, it's going to take about, 3.5, 4 hours, depending on the temperature. I think we're going to be cooking today at about 225, 250 degrees. It's an ideal cooking temperature. All you do, once you've applied the seasoning to the outside of the bird, you're going to take it and put it over this tool. It's called a chicken sitter. The chicken sits right on top of it, and it's going to cook in a vertical component. It's going to make it where you can cook more chickens in one area, and it's full of liquid also. So if you fill it with apple cider and some spices, it's going to keep that bird very moist during the cooking process. Again, it's going to take about 3 hours. Those of you that don't have a chicken sitter, then you just apply the rub on the outside of the chicken very liberally, just like everything else. Both sides all the way around it. And now it's time to put them in the cooker. I'm going to put them a little closer to the firebox back here. When you're laying it in there, you want to put it backside down for the first rotation. About an hour later, we'll come back and put it in there again and flip it over. All right. Now that we've handled that, you want to make sure and adhere to good food handling practices. And remember, you never want to handle raw meat and then handle cooked meat. Earlier today, we put on our brisket and our shoulder. Now it's time to slice that up. One of the things you always want to remember, when slicing a brisket, you want to slice it against the grain. When you're doing pork, today, we'll be pulling our pork. Typically here in the Midwest, everyone slices everything, but really, that's not something that is done down south where they've been doing pork forever. When we're doing a brisket, again, now we've got the brisket flat on this side. This end of it is called the burnt end. So when you're slicing the burnt end, really what you're going to want to do is save that very end piece there. That's my favorite slice of brisket. Once you slice it, set it to the side. Once you hit that point, you're going to want to make approximately 1/8 inch slices all the way down against the grain. That way it's going to be super tender as you're serving that. Now let's move on to the pork shoulder. I'll show you what I mean about pulling pork. When you go to pork shoulder, same thing. We've got our whole pork shoulder. See how it kind of glued itself back together? When I'm talking about pulled pork, basically, you can use your fingers or a pair of tongs. You're going to be pulling out the nuggets. And these things are wonderful. Those people down south, they know what they're talking about on pulled pork. What you want to do is cook it to the point that it's super tender and goes forward like that. And your friends are going to go crazy over this stuff. A lot of seasoning all over it. The last thing are the slab of ribs. And when you come up to a slab of ribs, what you're going to want to do in most situations is that you're going to slice as close to the dead center between the bones as possible. So you just want to come across it and slice it. Come across and slice as close to dead center as possible. That way everyone's getting an equal amount of meat on both sides there. I want to thank you for joining us in this barbecue extravaganza. It's something I hope you're walking away from this knowing you can cook barbecue just like a world champion in the backyard. And if you've got any questions, make sure and give old Joe a holler, and happy smoking to you.
These Oklahoma Joe's products and other new Braunfeld Smoker Company products, including the rib rack and meat hook shown on the video, are available by calling 1-800-232-3398.